The biggest crash in the crypto market has been successfully overcome. Today we're seeing some renewed strength, and in this video we'll discuss what that means and above all what's really happening behind the scenes right now. I've prepared a lot for today, especially to give you a clear look behind the scenes, what's really going on and what impact does this crash have on the roadmap going forward. We'll discuss all of this in today's video. It's definitely worth sticking around until the end today. We'll be going over my current setups in detail, both for Bitcoin and for the altcoins. So you're definitely in good hands here. And if you're new to the channel,
before we continue with the current video, I just wanted to make sure that you guys know I'm a real person, but every video from my German YouTube channel gets translated in this English channel with AI, just that you know and you don't wonder. And now I want to make an announcement for you guys. I just created a free Telegram group for only my English speaking community, so only for the people here on my English channel. I created an English speaking Telegram group, so you guys have the opportunity to see all my trades, all my live trades, my technical analysis. Also, you get the opportunity in my Telegram group to use all my trading indicators. So I created in total 3 own trading indicators. One is for liquidity. One indicator is very perfect to predict the bull market or bear market. So it's very useful for this bull run. So just that you know, you get everything completely for free in my Telegram group. You only have to do one thing. You have to sign up with my affiliate link to BingX. Yeah, I personally trade only on BingX. So here you see all my current positions. I also did, by the way, a complete beginner tutorial for my English speaking community for the platform BingX. It's for real a very good crypto exchange with a lot of liquidity, so the trading experience is very good. And with my affiliate link you get also a lot of bonuses, like $120 when you register, $100 for your first deposit. So it's quite a nice opportunity for you guys, for my English speaking community, Crypto Vincent, just that you know. And when you created an account with the link in my description, you have here in your profile your UID, and you just have to send me your UID. I can show you here in the description. So you have to send me your BingX UID to my Telegram at CryptoVincent22, and then I will manually put you in my completely free Telegram group where you get access to all my indicators, live trades and so on. And you get also insights in my personal trading strategy. So you see here everything. So it's a quite nice opportunity, completely for free. Just sign up with my affiliate link and then I will put you in the group. But now we are continuing with the video you wanted to watch.
We've definitely seen clear strength coming in today. We've noticed it as well. At this point, I don't really want to go over the news in detail. I think most people have already realized that pretty much everything was just pure market manipulation, and accordingly, we've once again received positive news from Trump, especially regarding the relationship with China. That's why everything is definitely back in the green, and that's also why we see, for example, with the S&P 500, that it's still hitting one all-time high after another. And as we all know, there's a correlation between the crypto market and the traditional market. And since we've seen green numbers again today, Monday, and thus relative strength, this is also noticeable with Bitcoin. So that's definitely the current state of things. I'm still sticking to my plan as usual. Yeah, people are probably already annoyed by me showing this chart over and over again, but it's just incredibly accurate because Bitcoin is doing exactly what it needs to do. I say it in pretty much every YouTube video, and once again, we've clearly seen that this one low was broken, and accordingly, the liquidity was taken out. That's why, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time at this point until a new all-time high happens. As I said, we'll talk about the concrete roadmap later, and we've also received new data here regarding the long to short ratio. But more on that in a moment. What I want to show first is a clear look behind the scenes. So on the one hand, what really happened here, and above all, what is happening now, especially after the crash. It's extremely important to keep an eye on all the data right now. Here at the top, we can see the Bitcoin chart. Below, I've added 2 indicators here. First, the spot volume. Basically, that's when you simply buy Bitcoin and hold it in your own spot portfolio, for example. That essentially reflects the regular purchases. And down here, we can see the aggregated open interest. This means that here we can see the futures volume, or to put it simply, how much leverage is currently in play in the market. And what you can see very clearly here are those typical and especially strong market liquidations that take place. We saw it here, for example, already on April 8th, 2025, when they reached a low point here. This means a clear cleansing of the overall leverage in the market. And as a result, we also saw Bitcoin bottom out here. We also saw a slight spike here, meaning there was a rotation or spot was bought back in, and overall the leverage was flushed out. And something like this is, of course, very, very cleansing for the market because it allows a new healthy foundation to be built. Spot demand is therefore much more sustainable since actual Bitcoin are being bought and held here compared to overall leverage, where capital is merely borrowed and repeated liquidations occur. And here we also see the second cleansing on June 24th. Here too, there was an interim low point, and we see exactly the same thing at the current time. If we take a closer look, we've even reached almost the same level as in June, even though Bitcoin is now significantly higher. And of course, that's a perfect starting position that we can build on, because now we have significantly more room and leeway to the upside again. And this is also evident here, as I once pointed out, Bitcoin, altcoins, spot trading volume, and we've also seen a new spike there. This clearly means leverage has been flushed out, the market has been cleaned up, and spot demand is now rising again, and that's exactly what you want to see. And that's why, to sum it up briefly, this spike downward was exactly what we needed, especially for the altcoins. Yes, so with Bitcoin, it's actually relatively manageable, you have to say, but especially with something like Bittance or Tau, Casper, Render, as we all saw, there were drops of 60, 70, even 80% in some cases. At that point, it was clearly the spot investors who were rewarded because the spot investors actually returned to their original levels relatively quickly. We can see it here on a monthly basis. Bittance or Tau crashed briefly, but was bought up again right away. And that's actually the case with a lot of altcoins. Also with Render, of course, it was hit extremely hard. Together with Casper, that was one of the strongest examples. $3.20, but now it's back to $2.80 at the current time. So of course, as a regular spot investor, you took a bit of a hit too, but as long as you didn't panic sell, everything is still basically fine. That's why it's actually a gift for all spot investors, because now the rally can be much more sustainable as a result. That's how we see it at the current moment as well. Especially the insiders, particularly the big players in the market, we can see this very clearly with the sharks at the moment. So basically, investors who have or are accumulating between 100 and 1,000 Bitcoin, we can clearly see extremely strong, aggressive buying happening here. In fact, it's as strong as it has been in a long time. And that's definitely impressive to see at this point in time. And we can also see very clearly that this money definitely has a certain intelligence. We saw it back in the 2015, 16, and 17 cycle. That's when we saw a top form during the sharks accumulation phase. And exactly from the moment the sharks stopped buying, that's when the top was set in motion. In other words, they had already secured their sales or their Bitcoin before the Bitcoin top, and then we entered the bear market. So intelligent decisions were definitely made here, and that's why such behavior can be interpreted as a very good sign when smart money continues to buy in. That's definitely the current state of things, and it's the same in the traditional markets. Everything is going according to plan. Sometimes it's really a bit over the top, what you see out there, whether on Twitter or elsewhere. Even when I look at CoinMarketCap here, we've dipped back into the fear zone again. And the funny thing is, just take a look at this chart, okay, on a weekly basis. This is the S&P 500, the largest index in the US. What we can take a look at here, let's check out the fear and greed index for the general stock market, the traditional market. It's absolutely insane. We're in a huge fear zone here. We're closer to extreme fear than to the neutral range, even though we're actually on the verge of an all-time high here. And that's obviously extremely good when the overall market is super bearish, super negative, even though prices are extremely high, because then we definitely have a clear indication that there's still plenty of room to move up. Because one thing I can tell you, just like in the crypto market, there are also corresponding cycles in the traditional market. And it's always been the case that you see the individual top areas at a minimum during greed or extreme greed. So especially here once, there was also extreme greed present at those times, but that's not the case at the current moment, and that's why we also have clear positive signals here, which in turn have an impact on the crypto market. So everything still fits together perfectly here as well. Otherwise, as long as the 50-day SMA continues to hold for Bitcoin, the bull run is still fully intact here as well. I think the loyal viewers among you should definitely be familiar with this chart. I don't want to annoy you at this point by always showing the same charts, but it's still extremely important to me personally to keep giving you a bird's eye view for the bigger picture. And that's exactly how things still look at the current moment. The roadmap remains intact, and we can definitely expect at least one more strong push here, a kind of blow off top in quarter 4, maybe even extending into quarter 1. That's the current plan. We can also see it very clearly with gold. We have a relatively similar pattern there with this parabolic upswing as well. But now, slowly but surely, there are more and more signs that a top could soon be forming here. And this is definitely something to view positively and to value positively for Bitcoin. We've already seen it before. In 2020, we got a top in gold, and only afterwards did the real parabolic upswing begin. And only afterwards did the real parabolic upswing begin for Bitcoin, and I could imagine something similar happening here as well, that now, slowly but surely, a top is forming in gold, and then accordingly, Bitcoin could do something similar. So exactly this kind of movement here, which almost looks like it's going straight up, I could really imagine Bitcoin doing something like that again, especially now in quarter 4 over the next few weeks. As I said, the current fundamentals are better than ever to come back to this chart because everything has been cleared out accordingly here. So that's all I have to say about that for now. Otherwise, in general, quarter 4 is always to be viewed positively. We already saw it back then in 2023. Starting from mid-October, things definitely kicked off for Bitcoin here as well, and accordingly, on October 14th, 2023, we pretty much only saw green weekly candles. And something like that can happen again very, very well, especially now because the spring has been compressed again for Bitcoin. That's why it's reasonable to assume that the next upward impulse will be very, very strong, because we've just had a long accumulation phase here. And as I said, the longer these phases last, the more impulsive the next upward movement will be, because the spring has simply been compressed so much. That's the analogy I keep mentioning in the videos, so you can also visualize it that way. As I said, there's a real reason and substance behind this, because here we repeatedly have the opportunity for all the indicators to cool off, and the more cooled off the indicators are at a higher price, and the worse the sentiment is at a high price, the stronger the next upward movement will be. That's how it's always been for Bitcoin. That's all for now on that topic. Now let's get very, very specific. What can we expect in the next few hours, in the next few days, especially for those of you who want to execute concrete trades here? So now let's talk a bit about what my plan is here. We definitely saw a clear reversal on the 30-minute chart, so here we have a kind of inverse head and shoulders pattern. As I said, I'm not a big fan of any particular patterns, but here it's visually represented how the reversal happened with Bitcoin. In other words, a clear trend reversal that has now taken place. And something like this is definitely extremely positive, because especially at the origin here, we will get extremely strong support. That's why I've marked the $112,800 here. So here I will personally definitely start scaling up new long positions again. It definitely makes perfect sense now to look for new entries again. So I can really only recommend this to you, of course, without giving financial advice, but it really makes sense to slowly but surely scale back into the market, because the next upswing is basically already pre-programmed here. Just like with Ethereum, we're coming back into extremely important support here as well. We can see it very clearly. At exactly $4,000, we haven't had a single 3-day candle close below that level so far, and we have extremely, extremely strong support there. Because the resistance was extremely strong back then, the support is now equally strong, and that's why we're seeing similar behavior here. The spring is being compressed until the next impulse occurs, and especially with Ethereum, the individual upward structures, the individual upward impulses are always extremely strong, and that's why it can also make sense to use a low leverage there. But please don't get burned there, of course. So, we've all definitely learned from this strong spike, but especially now when everyone is extremely fearful, when everyone still feels the pain in their bones, in my opinion, it definitely makes much more sense to take on more risk again, especially with low leverage. That's definitely my plan and where I currently stand as well, especially when I look at things like this where a huge amount of short liquidity is coming in, the table is already set, so to speak, for new all-time highs. That's why I'm personally relatively optimistic, so that's definitely the current state of things. As long as each of these lows keeps getting higher, it definitely makes sense to scale back into long positions. I'll definitely keep you updated here as well. In my free Telegram group, you always get direct information about where I personally will be placing new trades. And in the chat function there, I always list everything, including when I plan to execute individual trades. I even predicted the exact reversal pattern here. So if you want to join, just create an account with Bitfinex, and right now you can still get $400 completely free. It's definitely really worth it to take advantage of this opportunity. I even have some community members who have made several thousand US dollars here. For example, here we see a member from our community who made $1,600 solely with the bonus. That is, with completely free capital you get when you deposit 2,000 US dollars. That really is an absolute no-brainer. As I said, I've linked everything in the video description, and if you send me your UID on Telegram, I'll add you to my group completely free of charge, so you'll always be up to date and in the know, and the exact same applies to Solana as well. Starting from the level of at least 155 US dollars, I will also begin to slowly but surely scale back in here. This is definitely the best plan you can implement right now. As long as we are in this area where consolidation is happening, it always makes sense, especially in an uptrend, especially in a bull market, to keep building new long positions. Of course, be careful. We've all learned from this liquidation event, but still, it definitely makes sense, and that's why this remains the roadmap I'm following. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments, or we can also exchange ideas in my free Telegram group. Otherwise, I sincerely thank you for your attention. Of course, feel free to like and subscribe to support me here. Thanks a lot for that. Then I'll see you again in the next video.